it's, it's all types of stuff going on. We're moving a lot of things that seemingly seem separate, but they're not. And so you kind of have to kind of like, have a thought process where, you could kind of like see how all these different things are connected and like push them forward in different ways, right? Because we're dealing with spiritual stuff, we're dealing with business stuff, we're dealing with interpersonal relationships, we're dealing with politics, political things, perception. So, and you have the Citra Akra, so you got that too as well. You know what I mean? So you're dealing with all those different components. And the thing is, I have a friend of mine. I mentioned his name before, Zakaria, right? And he has a friend of his that is a professional football player. He's like, I think he used to play for the Cleveland Brown. Maybe he plays with Deshaun Watson. Anyways, whatever. He got like a big contract in the NFL, whatever. Anyways, he's had a lot of issues. But the point is like this. I remember he came out to Israel once, right? And he came out to Israel. He came like, these trips where they bring different athletes and they tour them around and that type of thing. And so he came, whatever, he did that type of trip. So we all had dinner together, right? And so I was there, the whole thing. And my impression of him, he was just like it was like he was like in the game at that point. Like the way he was moving around, like the way he was standing, and he was just on. This is like the middle of the summer. This is like Israel. Like he should be on vacation, right? Like his whole mannerism was just like, and he's like sitting. He was like in the restaurant, and he was like, because the guy who came with him is this guy Quincy, right? Who's like who's I love how people just like sending messages. Anyways, so his friend that was with him is this guy named Quincy, and he's like a quarterback coach. Anyways, long story short, it was like he was just on, right? And you think about like so many great athletes, right? And you hear how they prepare for things and they get ready for things. And one of the things, like I remember this one lady, I can't think, I think her name is like Gabby something, but she's like a sprinter, African American woman, or maybe she's mixed, I don't know. But she's talked about before she won the gold medal, like the days before, she wrote down 500 times, like, I am going to win the gold medal. I'm going to be a gold medalist. And she's like, I completely convinced myself that I'm going to win the gold medal. You know what I mean? So the thing is like on this side, you have to be all the way in on purity. You know what I mean? That's the only protection at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like the levels that like we're operating at and the whole thing, the whole Robin Hood, the whole thing is just like there's so much Satan. It's like it's a whole concept, right? And so the only protection at this level is purity. It's the opposite of Puff Daddy. You know what I'm saying? It's the complete opposite of Puff Daddy. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, and so that's this game now at this point. It's just like because Hashem has already created the destination, right? We've been learning that with Rav Ash, like the end reality, right? It was already created. We just have to go through a process to access that. You know what I'm saying? And so that the victory is already here, right? The victory is already like it's already created, right? And so the whole measure is to be go through all these different simulated experiences and all these different tests and staying composed, staying in a place of purity and separating yourself from like impure type situations. You know what I'm saying? So that's really like that's really the thing. And it's like we think about like many of our leaders that came before us. You know what I mean? Maybe they had the technology, maybe they didn't. Either way, we don't know about it, right? Like we don't know about this level. You know what I mean? Okay, a guy he made some money. Very nice. Well, how would he get it? How would he get it? You know what I mean? So it's just like so all that money stuff is very nice, but we're talking about like this idea of having access to all the wisdom that God created. You know what I mean? And like plugging ourselves into like higher worlds, still operating in this thing, seeing things in expanded dimensions. You know what I'm saying? And spreading that consciousness. Because if you think about it, I mean, in order for Mashiach to come, that type of understanding has to exist, at least amongst the critical mass of people, on planet Earth, or how else can they realize it? How could they experience it? So anyway, so that's the work, that's the work, but it's exciting, and it's just like watching a flower, grow. It's just like, okay, you watered it, maybe, this is sunlight, but you just kind of like you're a spectator. Anyways, so what I was thinking was, on our learning schedule, we should start the week off with something a little bit lighter. You know what I mean? And and be able just to kind of like have that like going into the week type of a thing. And then during the week we could go crunch, the heavy stuff. You know what I mean? It's heavy work. It's heavy work, but all that is breaking shells, and allowing that light to flow through, because it's not just like we're learning something, we're actually opening those things up in ourselves, right? All these that's us. Like, we're not reading about some like random creature that exists. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is me. This is my anatomy. This is how I work. So as we learn about it, we become aware of it. So we're literally transforming through the learning. We're transforming our perception of ourselves. We're transforming our perception of the world around us, right? And we're seeing ourselves in a much more expanded way, right? And thus we're no longer the same people. You know what I mean? So it's that type of thing. But anyways, but in the beginning of the week, and you wanna start the week, like I was thinking about actually, the idea. I was thinking like, wow, like how amazing is it? Like when you look at the way that God designs the day, right? So God designs the day, and it's like you wake up in the morning and there's birds chirping. You know what I mean? It's like an unbelievable concept. Like what? Like this is unbelievable that God literally wakes you up with birds chirping, like singing songs. These birds, right? And then the thing is, the day, it's not like the sun just appears. Like it's like, you know what I mean? It starts off slowly, 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 and it's like, and it's slowly revealing itself, and it's like, and it's this whole thing, and then you have a certain type of air that only exists in the morning, right? And this whole connection of dew and this whole thing, and you're just like, this is unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like what a merciful, like he literally gives us a symphony, like every day, and like he gives us the visuals and the whole thing, and you just see it every day, and you're just like, yeah, that's the way it is. It's like this is miraculous. It's miraculous. The morning air is miraculous. That there's such a thing. We could easily have the same air all day, right? But it's not, right? And so anyway, so the thing is, so we want to control our thinking, right? And that's a segue into this thing today. So we'll do that, and we'll learn a little bit of halakha, right? We always got to do a little bit of halakha, and that'll kind of like be our we call it like in when we're in yeshiva, we call it like a seder, right? So seder means order, right? And so you have your order of learning, right? So like during the so Monday, we do like kind of like a nice inspirational, critical thinking thing on a broad level. And then by the time we get into Wednesday, we're kind of like dealt with the week a little bit, and we need to like break those shells. You know what I mean? And so we're going to hammer out, Ashlag Wednesday, Thursdays, right? And then on Friday we'll also do something like inspirational going into like Shabbat and that type of thing. So that's like an order, like I have orders with different students. Like you guys know Otino, right? So like we have an order of different safers we're learning. You see it, you follow it. So, anyways, all right. So, any thoughts, any ideas before we go? Yeah, go.
Yeah, just real quickly. Baruch Hashem, because this, it's interesting that you mentioned mentioned like the birds chirping in the morning. When we got up yesterday morning, Shabbat morning, um, it was just very, very peaceful. I mean, and you could hear the birds chirping, and we just really paid attention to it, and then we learned
Mm,
a very critical story about the birds.
mm,
For this particular parashah that we were reading yesterday, Beishalah. And so, you want to just share just a little bit about those birds?
Well, it was basically like I believe some of this sages were saying that Moses was vindicated by the the birds, because there were those who went out on the seventh day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to gather, but the birds had eaten it all to vindicate him. That was what some of the sages say. And then of course there's, I guess, some who didn't see it that way. But at any point, it just talked about the beauty. Okay. It just talked about the beauty of the birds and the singing, and also just the whole song that we experienced during this past week's tour portion. And so just about that. The song.
And so
The peacefulness, and some even believe that it's good to, feed the birds. We didn't do it because we wanted to talk to you about it first. But like just bring out like some of the I guess the just the remnants of your food.
Yeah, like
of your
crumbs
food,
and
like the
different things
crumbs.
like that. You can go out and just throw them to the birds.
I think Shabbat. We'll learn about it, but there's an idea that like you're not allowed to feed animals, but for some reason you are able to feed birds.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll look into that.
yeah. So that was just one thing why we didn't do it, but we did observe the birds, and it was beautiful. So
Very nice. Okay, Shabbat birds. All right, so yeah, so we're going to go into this thoughts and these things, and it's a very good outlook going into this week, right? Because we the thing is, wisdom changes us, right? And so we want to be able to, see ourselves like in new ways, see the world around us, and the thing is, it's like one of the biggest wars that exist, in the world is over, the human mind, right? And there's so many different sources, influences that are literally they want you to buy product, they want you to go particular places, they want you to aspire for certain things. That's all major intellectual influences, right? And all of them are competing for mind space, right? All these, when you see a media company, that's really an organization that's competing for mind space, right? And that's what the whole thing is, right? And so here we're going to learn Rabbi Nachman's outlook on this idea of the mind and thoughts, right? Because that's like we want to be strong in that. We want to be able to have the strength to, look, and especially for young people, you know what I mean? It's like they have to understand like these companies are competing for your brain space. They're competing for their ability to make you react a certain way, right? Whether it's putting your credit card number in or spending hours at a time, but that is their goal. It is not your friend. Okay, so it says Makshavod Haridurim. Okay. So, sorry, here Hurim. Sorry, here Hurim. Sorry. Okay, so it says Ha'ikar Leishama Mokod Shelo Yichametz Yichametz. So it sounds like this. This is a very interesting correlation because we're getting ready to start thinking about Pesach, thinking about the whole situation, thinking about where it's going to take us, and building into that reality, right? And so anyway, so it's interesting we're here. She says, make sure, okay, thoughts and fantasies, right? He says, make sure that you don't, he says, make sure that you don't allow your mind to become chametz. So where we hear chametz, chametz is what we're not allowed, is leavened bread, right? Right? We're not allowed to have leavened bread during what? Pesach. What is Pesach? A new order, right? So he says, don't dwell on bad thoughts or desires at all. These thoughts are rooted in the side of death. If they come into your mind, just reject them and push them out completely, because ultimately they ruin the mind and make it impossible to pray properly and experience genuine joy. You should try and avoid even the merest hint of thoughts like this. You should be as careful about it as we are to avoid even the merest speck of chametz on Pesach. So he's saying anytime a negative thought comes into your mind, you have to reject it. You're out. You lock the door, you close the door, everything's closed up. You can't come in. No, you can't come in. You know that last person you go to the store and they're closing up, right? And you're just like, no, I just need to get one thing, one more thing. Come on, let me in. And this guy's like, nah, man, you can't come in. So that is a Torah that God is teaching us about our thoughts, right? That we have to close the door on any type of negative thought. Oh, this is not going to happen. Oh, this is out. No, yeah, right, out. You should try to even avoid the merest hint of a thought like this. You should be as careful about it as you are to avoid the mere speck of chametz on Pesach. Evil thoughts are the leaven in the dough. And regarding leaven on Pesach is that we must destroy completely, so that it can neither be seen nor found. Purify your mind and empty it of any thoughts like this. It says in Likkutei Moran. He says, it says, Ke shabi im ala mechava makshavot ha'arihuri zenut. So he says like this: a person cannot always stop having bad thoughts from entering his mind in the first place, but he does have the power to reject them once they become conscious of them. This is something very important because it is the way to make amends for the sins we have committed earlier to his life. Perfect repentance has to balance the original sin exactly. Right. Just one side point. Right. It's not a side point, but I want us to really connect to the level. I know you appreciate Rabbi Nachman. I appreciate Rabbi Nachman. It was hundreds of years ago. This great Tzaddik lived, the Breslov movement. We get it. We get it. We know about it. But I had a conversation with some people that were academics or those type of people, and I explained to them why the concept of their education system is faulty, and their points is of observation are not really factual in a way. Well, they are factual. So, like, if you think about it, what is the concept of facts and statistics, right? Facts and statistics work like this. I say it's a fact of this, and this, right? So the reason why that becomes a fact is because I have another source that proves what I'm saying is true. Like another person saying, yeah, that's true. That person may be a university, that person may be a great scholar, that great person, but at the end of the day, it's their consent that makes it a fact. And the more people that you get to agree with this fact, right, is that, right? Same thing by statistics. Right? Statistics have a value because there's people who agree. They said this and they said that, they agree that. So therefore it's a statistic. Even though most statistics are not taken by even majority of the populations, right? A very small percentage of people, and from there they derive statistics. Right. So when you think about all the knowledge that exists in the world, it's rooted in consent. And because there's consent, people agree with that consent, and therefore they believe it. It's like currency. We all agree on it. So therefore we circulate it. We exchange it. We so the point is the same, but we could easily not. Like you see when inflation happens, right? So the point is the same that when we're reading Rabbi Nachman, we're reading any sources, their root is not based off of consent. Their root is based off of God, based off of the Torah, based off of the precepts of the Bible, of the Pasukim. That is the reference point. And so that's why when we reading the sages that we can understand that no, this isn't like a secular thing. All secular information is based off of consent. It's all based off of consent. There's a group of people that consent that this is a factual point. And that's it. The majority rules. Okay. So he says, a person cannot always stop the bad from entering his mouth, to his mind, but he does have the power to reject it. So those negative thoughts are going to come. Now, there is a way to block those things from entering our mind, but that's when we're in thinking about Torah. Well, and I think he's probably going to get there. So he says like this. He says, this is very important because it is the way to amend for the sins he may have committed earlier in his life. So he says perfect repentance has to balance the original sin exactly. This is literally what happens here. Before he sinned, it was because because the temptation entered his mind, and he succumbed to it. Now the thought is in his mind again, but this time he rejects it. So don't feel discouraged if you find all kinds of temptations and fantasies continually pressing on your mind. They are actually providing you with the opportunity to repent and to make amends for the damage done in the past. Today, you have the power to master your thoughts and temptations. When you do so, the spark of holiness will fail because of what you did earlier. Transgressions are released, and you're able to purify yourself. Your mind and your voice will be purified, and you will find harmony and peace. This peace can bring the whole world back to the service of God. Sheikh Adam Maknis Beitoch Shikilo Makshavot Hasoniot. Okay, so he says when a person admits when a person admits unholy things to his mind. Yeah, attempt. Sorry, when a person attempts unholy thoughts or I don't know, he's not saying. When a person allows unholy thoughts to enter his mind, when a person admits unholy thoughts to his mind, the holiness of his mind is reduced, and in direct proportion to the space occupied by these degraded thoughts. Right. So he's saying like if a person allows negative thoughts, impure thoughts to enter his mind, whatever holiness you build for yourself gets reduced. The bigger that impure thought, the more of your kedusha, your inner mind is destroyed. That's why a lot of like very religious people don't even deal with social media. Okay. So, so he says, if you stick a pole in the riverbed, all kinds of dirt and filth gather around it. In the same way, all kinds of bad characteristics develop because of these unholy ideas. The mind is assailed with desires and temptations. In fact, all the sins a person does are ultimately caused by unholy ideas. He originally admitted to his mind. So he's saying when we look at the process of committing a sin, a transgression from the Torah, he says it's not like it just happens. It starts in the same way that the morning unfolds, as we discussed earlier, that process of awakening of the dawn, and it goes step by step by step by step, and it unfolds into its full blown in the middle of the day. That same way is how sins occur, right? And it starts with the opening in the mind, then the impure thought gets in there, then the thought it continues to foster, and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows all the way to the person transgresses. So it says, Keisha Adam Choshev Makshavot Reot Hashem Tifsut Halev. So he says, unholy thoughts are the folly of the heart. When a person dwells on such thoughts, his heart becomes solid, and the foreskin of his heart grows thick. The void of creation is spoiled, and it is as if his person had damaged the whole world. But when he thinks good thoughts, the creation is restored. When he purifies his heart and expels any unholy thoughts from his mind, thinking only good thoughts, he can bring about real miracles. V'kol tikkun ha'adam v'keli kulo. So he says, a person's entire destiny, for good or ill, depends on the thoughts of his heart. The thoughts and ideas in the heart are based on the heart's inclination, the good inclination and the evil inclination. You remember how the Rav Asai talks about the two parts that because there's an aspect of us inside of all of our body parts, is as well as there's a pure channel through the 613 expressions of the soul. He said there's also an impure channel, right? So he's saying it like this. So he's saying the thoughts and the ideas of the heart are based in the heart's inclination, the good inclination and the evil inclination. Good thoughts are the good inclination, and bad thoughts are the evil inclination. Sheka nizahar mi machshavot ra'ot vehoshev. Makshavot tovot bilabo. So he says, when a person expels all the unholy thoughts from his heart, and he thinks only good thoughts by the way of serving God, he has founded his strength on the rock of my heart. It says in Psalms, and he will succeed in reaching the level where my heart is void within me. He said he will be able to develop his character to perfection and take the yoke of heaven with a perfect heart. He will be worthy of true prayer and perfect repentance, and bring about unification of the worlds above the worlds below. The hidden Torah of the ancient one will be revealed, and the forces of evil will be destroyed. Well, it does that little weird like move quick thing. All right, hold on. Okay. He says he will be worthy of perfect prayer and true perfect repentance, and bring about unification in the worlds above. We know what that means. And the worlds below. We know what that means. He says the hidden Torah of the ancient ones will be revealed, and the forces of evil will be destroyed, and the forces of holiness will be revealed. Israel will be blessed with vitality, abundance, and prosperity. Kol ha Makshavot shehale adam kula ba'im beitoka hadibur. So he says, and all the thoughts that pass through the mind are expressed in words. At the moment one thinks a thought, the lips move. He says he may not actually feel this, but as the Zohar explains, that there is always a movement, however very subtle. Every thought a person can think must be. Okay, so he says every thought that a person can think must be expressed in words, however subtly. Yeesh bane. So they're talking about this idea of. I like to think of it like this. I like to break the thinking process down, right? Because I've thought about this. I've learned this for a long time, and this process of thought. And the thing is like this. I put it. This is my own personal formula. You can use it if you want. So it's four parts to it, right? It's thought, thinking, idea, concept, right? So when we look at how does the thought process manifest into action, what is the process that they go through, whether the action is speech or physical movement? So I said first a person has a thought in their head, right? So the thought in their head is that, say they're hungry, like an instinct, right? I have a thought, I'm hungry. The thinking process is, well, well, it's a series of things. Maybe like, what are my options? What do I want to eat? Whatever. But it's a process of this desire. And then you have an idea, right? Where you kind of like narrow it down to a specific function, right? Whether it's just whether it's going into looking on your dresser and grabbing a bag of chips, or going to the refrigerator or whatever, you have this idea and you kind of know what you kind of like have a desire for. And so that understanding of the proximity and the whole process and everything goes into point of concept. And then once we get into point of concept, that is a stage before action, right? So if a person had a thought and they're aware of that system I just said, right? So they're aware of, okay, I have a thought. If they just stopped at that point of recognizing that I'm having a thought, and then I'm going to go emerge into breaking down what I'm really trying to understand, and then that is going to form an idea, and that idea is going to allow me to create a context for expression, which is the full concept, right? Perhaps if I understood that process, I could say, where's that coming from? right? Where's that desire coming from? Am I hungry because my body is hungry, or am I hungry because, I'm feeling fear actually, and me eating something allows me to feel calm, right? Or any type of thought. You can apply it to anything, right? But it's being able to be aware of your thinking process. Okay. So we could talk more about it as time goes, but those are the types of things I work on when I from these texts. Okay, so it says Zeish b'nei Adam she'esh lehem mihir hure avoda zera od. So it says like this: many people experience very strong mental distractions while they're trying to pray. This can be immoral fantasies or even thoughts of idolatrous worship. Wow. There are even those cases where people have vivid images of idolatrous objects, or even or else they experience overwhelming temptation at the very moment they stand to pray. And they try to push those thoughts out of their mind by tossing their heads from side to side. But the harder they try, the more the thoughts press on or press in. He says, and this is in the nature of thoughts like this. The more work you get up, the more work, the more worked up you get about pushing them out of your mind, the more they institute their I don't know in their ways. He says the best way to deal with them is simply to ignore them. Act as if you are completely unconcerned. Focus on listening. Carry on with what you are doing, studying, praying, working, or whatever. Pay no attention to the thoughts or fantasies at all. Don't keep on looking around to see if they have gone away. Just carry on with you and trying to do. Just carry on with what you're trying to do, and in the end, they will go. This is very powerful for kids. He says, but and they will be on. He says, just carry on what you're doing, and in the end, they will go away on their own accord. But you should understand that this method is only a temporary measure. For the long term, the task is to sanctify and purify your body. We know what that means, right? To achieve this, you must go to a sadek to learn the paths of truth. This thoughts like these will disappear completely. Gam avut mazika meod lezer venoten chocha. So he says, if you allow yourself to be depressed about these kinds of thoughts, it is simply feeds them and gives them more fuel. So if you succumb to them, they just got you. He said it is he said it is no good being upset or afraid of them. Just don't pay any attention to them. Try and be cheerful. Elsewhere we discuss the way to be happy always. He says, eventually these thoughts will disappear automatically. Don't keep on testing to see if they are still there. It won't help you if you keep turning around to look. Like Moshe says, when the children of Israel are moving forward, some people say that those the Egyptians that were chasing them are like they could be understood as when a person is growing and they're going into a new place, that there's voices that tell them like, oh, you can't be that new person, you can't be a Sadek, you can't do this. You remember you did this that day, you remember you did that, how could you tell yourself you could be connected to the most divine light and communicate with angels and affect, galaxies, billions of miles away. Who says you can do that? You did this thing. So they're saying that Moshe said, be silent and go forward, right? And he says the Egyptians that you're going to see, you're never going to see them again. They're gone. You're in a new reality. Bye. It's a whole new thing. So no need to turn around. So he says Makshavod te horot hema bechaye na chayot. So he says, and the Torah distinguishes between the animals which are pure and the animals that are impure. The pure animals are pure thoughts, and impure animals are pure thoughts. Okay, so this is Torah distinguishes between pure and impure animals. Okay, the pure animals are pure thoughts, and the impure animals are impure thoughts. Okay, fine. The battle between the different thoughts in a person's mind is a battle between the pure and the impure animal, right? I heard an amazing analogy too over Shabbat. Somebody was saying how, we all have this animal aspect to us, right? And we want to elevate, be above the animal, right? Right? We know it's also the plant and the rock, but when people talk about the animal and the animal soul, all these types of things, right? So they're saying, what is the concept? And this is from Hasidus, from Chassidut, right? Through the Chabad teachings, because that's where I was at over Shabbat. And he said, like, it's interesting that the bringing the animal sacrifice, right? And this idea of the animal being put on the altar, and and being able to sacrifice. But think about this idea of this flame, right, being used to burn this animal meat, right? And saying this idea of looking at ourselves in that way, in the same way that they're burning the animal. Now we can understand that even with the offerings, right? That how these different offerings and the different spices and the different, we're dealing with different kingdoms, right? So in these types of things, you know what I'm saying? And so, and those kingdoms represented within us. Okay. So he says heaven allowed them to carry on. He says heaven allows them to carry on fighting because God has great pleasure when he sees man struggling hard to defeat these wild animals. We know what he's talking about. See, all these things are codes, right? Let me just such a random sentence. Just imagine a random non-Jew reading this, and he's like, "Yeah, the different parts of there's the animal and there's good. On a simple level, you can still gain something from it." He says, "But listen, heaven allows them to carry on fighting, right? Because God knows. So we already know that this is the design of the body. This is the design of the body and the soul, right? There's a two different aspects: the desire to receive and the desire to share. When he's talking about pure, he's talking about sharing. When he talks about impure, he's talking about selfishness, negativity, the desire to receive. We're here to overcome the desire to receive. We just learned that. So all these different things of good and bad are no longer, that's how the Christians look at it. We understand it as the desire to share and the desire to receive. That's it. And God does not want us in the frame of desire to receive. So selfish thoughts versus sharing thoughts. Because people say pure, all of a sudden they think about, people dancing on the countryside in white dresses and white suits. You know what I'm saying? So we're not talking about pure. We're not talking about impure. We are, yes, it means that, yeah, tahar, too much. I get it. But we're going to the essence of what's being expressed even there is the desire to share and desire to receive. That's what you're listening to. All right. So he says, "Hachalal shei asar beishuva ofen shehevu." So he says, the simple fact is that it is impossible for two thoughts to be in the mind at the same time. Whoa, that's a big thing. He said, it's therefore an easy matter to get rid of bad thoughts by just being quite passive. Simply do not think them. Simply do not think them. He says, think something else instead. He says, it's about the Torah or the devotion of God, or even about your work, or so on. If you turn your mind on something else, the bad thoughts and the fantasies will go away automatically. Ha makshava gevoha meod. And so thought is a very elevated level. One who wishes to think only thoughts of holiness and ascends to the world of thoughts must be completely silent. He says, even saying something good or noble would spoil the thought. He says, but if, this is big stuff, but even if a person is completely silent, there are many distractions which confuse the mind. He still has to purify his thoughts. And the way to do this is through hearing the storytelling of the righteous. Here, hooray, neuf him avi avot hatumah. So he says, sexual fantasies, excuse my language, are the prime source of all impurity. You hear that, young fellas? You hear that, young fellas? And look at what our TV shows us all day nonstop. Why do you think that they're doing that? They're controlling your level of receiving and connection, making you empty, poisoning your thoughts so you're in the frame of the desire to receive in your own thinking process, let alone how you express the rest of your life, and you're empty. So he says they are a strong source of pollution as a dead body. She says charity gives protection against these fantasies, but one should never rely on this and permit oneself to talk freely with women. One should say only what is essential. The merit of charity will give. The merit of charity will give when then save him from harm. He says the merit of charity he gives will then say, okay, so that's good. So it's a real thing. They really talk about that. It's like, a lot of they really tell us not when we were, learning and that time. He said, really try not to have conversations with women like that. You know what I mean? It just leads to, impure conversations, and then it just your whole thing's messed up. Talk to your wife. And you know what they even said about that? They said that when God created the world, He created 10 dimensions of speech, and 9 dimensions of speech were given to women, and one was given to man, right? And so the relationship in terms of speech and listening is between man and woman, is that the woman talks a lot, and the man, by listening to his wife speak, he connects to those other 9 levels of speech. You see what I'm saying? By listening, he connects, right? So sometimes you hear guys go, "Oh, my wife, she talks too much. This, I can't take it." Yeah, but she's trying to connect you to those higher dimensions, right? So it says, "Yes, Hari Urima, Shenima, Shekina, Mekili Pa Chazot." So he says there are certain fantasies which derive their strength from a particular husk, which is extraordinarily rough. He said it is very difficult to escape from them. Even if you try to shut your eyes, the thought appears wherever you turn. Charity gives protection against these thoughts. Siri Kaleha Alot Mehektin. Sharo. So he says, whenever you find bad thoughts and fantasies pressing in your mind, don't be depressed. Try extra hard to turn aside from them. The efforts itself is very precious and brings about the great tikkun, the great correction. Right? We know what that's about. Ha makshava bayad ha adama lehatota. So he says, when a person's thoughts are in his power completely, he can turn them into whatever direction he wants. He may be at a time of your thoughts run wild and fly into areas you thought to keep away from. It is still within your power to take them in the hand and even against their will and direct your thoughts to the true path. Thoughts is just like a horse which runs aside of the road and tries to go in the wrong direction. The rider controls the horse with the bridle and forces it to go in the right direction. As soon as you see the thoughts pulling in the wrong direction, take them in hand and bring them back to the right direction. This is a power that there's like, this is it. Like, if someone had the power to control their thoughts, or they work at it and they think about it and they strengthen it, then all the things so much in society falls aside, right? Because the whole point is that we don't have control over our thoughts. Everything is thinking for us. It's like, even when you watch a sporting game, there's an announcer there telling you what you're watching. You're just like, why do you need that? Why does he have to tell me? I'm looking at it. I can see for myself. So he says, Godel yikarat ha makshava in le sha'ar ki ha makshava yikara meod. So he says, it is impossible to form any conception of the preciousness of a good thought. Thoughts of Torah and devotion. Out of thoughts such as these are formed perfect objects, which will exist for all time. That's a very deep thing. He says, for this alone you can understand the true evil of unholy thoughts. God forbid. Ke shati hiye not. So he's saying, and he says, you should aim for the level of ma. This is deep. I didn't know he was going to go here. Okay. Let's get ready. Okay, so he says ma. So ma in Hebrew means what? You hear people say ma, what, ma. See it all the time in the street. He says this means binding yourself and your thoughts to God at all times in order to draw godliness over yourself. If you do this, all the battles and difficulties in your life will melt away and everything will go your way. The Hebrew word for thoughts is makshava, which bears the meaning of think what? Maksha ma. He says, this is to say that you must draw ma into your mind and bind your thoughts to God at all times. The gematria of the word ma is the mem is 40, the hey is 5, it equals 45. This is equivalent to the gematria of the name of God when all the letters are written out full. So he's saying the Yud Hey Vav, that structure. So he's saying that tetragrammaton is part of the system of Ma. Ma is part of the word makshava, right? And so he's saying the Ma means what, right? But he's saying this what is the gematria of it is God's name. So he's saying makshava means to clean your thoughts to God. And if you're interesting, that's also the same gematria for Adam, man, right? So he says, Siri kin lishmor. That was amazing, by the way. Like he did makshava, the ma is 45. In the 45, he shows how the 45 is connected to the gematria of the Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, which is the name of God, right? Sirikin lishmor et asmod modem amar. It says it's tehiriru. So he says. So he said you must be very careful about what you think, and thoughts can literally take on a life of its own. Makshava me'od. So he says thoughts is the highest aspect. It is more elevated than vision. The sense of hearing, and in fact, everything with thoughts is it is impossible to climb even it's that with thought it is possible to climb even higher. This is why you must be careful about what you think. He says sometimes a thought, a good idea, or a glimmer of perception can pass through your mind and shine there for a moment and then fly away again. It takes great strength to run after it and catch it and chase it until you catch up with it. Thoughts, ideas, reflections, thoughts, makshava, ma, what?
Well, it's I mean, this is like like you say, like it's very refreshing, um, because it deals with the fact that we have the ability to control our thought life, and have have the tools and the instructions that's needed to actually create and to basically maintain a pure mind. Just a pure mind, and understanding that it is a warfare. It is it's a work. It is a work that is not just because when you said like the system around us wants to think for us. It wants to tell you what to think. It wants to put thoughts in your head. It wants to sway you and move you in different ways. But ultimately, when we really just stop and just take notice of, hey, like what am I thinking? What are my thoughts? And you're paying attention to your thoughts. And then when you hear that thought, you then distinguish, or you basically understand, is this a pure thought or an impure thought?
Exactly.
And then when you determine, hey, you know what, this is an impure thought, let me get it out of here, you know. And so I'm going to spend my time and my days filling my mind with righteous thoughts, with pure thoughts, with the words of the tzaddikim. And you know, and that goes back to just if we just, you know, we just say, you know, I'm going to just read the Bible. I'm going to read the Tanakh. That's all, you know, I'm just going to read it. At some point, you will stop engaging in appropriate conversation with thoughts, because then you'll only have your own thoughts. And not to say that your thoughts about a particular text is wrong, but when you go and you read commentaries, you go and you read the words of the tzaddikim, you go and you read the words of the sages, now you're engaging in a larger world of thought about what you're reading. And now you gain, it's like there's others helping you to think. The righteous are helping you to think.
Yes.
You know, and so that's very positive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just agree. Everything, especially like the different points about, I was just visualizing the getting to the store and the doors are being are getting ready to be locked. And they say, sorry, that's it. You know, you can't come in. And just kind of using that, like, nope, you don't belong here. It's over, it's closed, no access. And then the formula was really good. Thoughts, thinking, idea, concepts, and
Yep.
That really is like, wow, okay, this thought came in. I'm hungry. You know, what do I want to eat? All of that. So just kind of working through this whole process. But even like what my husband was just saying about having the conversations with the tzaddikim, you know, having those stories, and all of that, that helps to frame your mind in the right direction to give you that pure, you know, dialogue and conversation, and something to keep on your mind. Because yes, everything is just, you know, you can't even go to the store and just do shopping without so much, you know, just trying to bombard your thoughts, your mind, and everything. And then for the children, it's like, whoa,
Right.
close your eyes, turn your head. You know, just it's a lot that they have to learn very early to filter through. And so we know as adults, if we're like struggling to keep that pure, and like you said, not like this, you know, you're dancing in the forest with a white garment on, this type of purity. We're really seeking to have that purity that connects us to our creator. Right. And that's totally different work.
And you know, Chief Rabbi, do you know how liberating it is to be able to tell people, and even ourselves, not to be discouraged when you have these impure thoughts? Not to, you know, that right there alone, with understanding that and understanding, say, hey, you know what? There's so many people that you know, that they're really trying to make a change in their life. They're trying to kick addictions. They're trying to like come out of darkness. And you know, these these thoughts keep coming up. They keep coming back. And you feel discouraged. You feel discouraged. And you tend to feel like, you know, am I crazy? You know, is something wrong with me? You know, because they're looking at other people. But the fact is to know that here you have a righteous sage, a righteous rabbi that's saying, listen, hey, this is normal. You're not crazy. Don't be discouraged. Hey, matter of fact, turn that discouragement into a joy because that evil thought that keeps coming up is reminding you of, hey, you can repent for this and you can change it. You can overcome this. And so it's just like you're not forgetting, like there's no sin that's going to be hidden, but within my nature, that's my soul reminding me, hey, let's correct this. Let's work on this. Let's not overlook this. We're not going to pass over this, and we want to be completely clean. And that's a really powerful tool right there.
I like it when he said, yeah, making amends.
Yeah, making amends
for the sin. It's like, wow. Okay. So it's like the past, like meeting up with your present day, opportunity to be the best part of what Jim has called you to be is just like one of those things. This is really good.
I had a friend I went to college with, and this friend, man, he ended up getting involved in some stuff, and he ended up having some mental problems because of the situation he put himself in. And I remember that, being young, I tried to be there for him, and I tried to, do things, but there was a time frame that he had to go back and live with his parents and whatnot. And for a long time, man, I just, because my life was going in a different direction. And we just kind of lost contact with each other. But for years, I really struggled with just the fact that, man, I wish I could have been there more for him, and it really bothered me. It really bothered me for years and years and years and years. And, one day, me and my family, many, many years later, we saw him. We actually ran into him just out of the blue. And, and I was able to go and talk to him, and man, I apologized to him. I said, man, I feel like I could have been a better friend, just being there. And he told me, he said, man, you were there for me. And he was like, man, I love you, and that was a blessing to me. That really freed me, right? Really freed me. But think about it like this here, because every time I would have that thought throughout the years, it was, I would always pray and say, Father, please forgive me for not being there, And so that was like a way that I believe that the Father just allowed me to actually see him. And it was like his way of saying, hey, man, don't carry this, don't carry this, and it's a blessing because, a year later, and I didn't know this, a year later, he couldn't deal with life. He couldn't deal with life, and may his memory be blessed. But he couldn't deal with life. Not, I didn't find that out until a couple of months ago, and that was years ago that he did this. And so, that's what we're studying and what we're doing right now. And I Baruch Hashem for you, Chief Rabbi, because there's great merit in what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to be very specific, the pure thoughts and the thoughts of purity is connected to the desire to share, right? Those are pure thoughts. Negative thoughts, impure thoughts, are connected to the desire to receive. So when we connect to sharing, we have a holistic category of those types of thoughts that connect us to others, thoughts of giving, thoughts of connection to Hashem, all these different things. Thoughts of impurity are thoughts with ego, vanity, anger, frustration, impurities, all types of things like this, right? So we have to be able to understand where a thought is coming from. Is it coming from my aspect of the desire to share, or is this thought coming from the desire to receive, right? And if it's in the desire to receive, I got to shift it over to the desire to share, right? And in this case, by ignoring them or pushing them out, right? That's the converting, right? He said, because no two thoughts could exist in the same place, right? So we want to take those thoughts and we want to transform them from the negative into the positive, whether we re-understand what that thought is actually means, like you just said, that this is something that I'm supposed to do tshuva on, or removing it completely and just dealing with it in its inception. As soon as it comes in, oh, no, that's negative, stop, please, I'm not ready for that. The McDonald's is closed. You know what I'm saying? No more customers. Right? No one. The diner's closed. You know, right? So the point is saying, so yeah, so focusing on that system and asking, and even like with the kids, like starting like this dynamic of like, hey, what you're feeling right now, is it coming from the part of you that's sharing or the part of you that wants to receive? Because if this is coming from a place of receiving, it's not going to make you happy, right? It's not going to get you what you want. Only when you're in a place of sharing. So we have to overcome this thought, right? This thought to receive. We have to be aware of that, and we just have to start seeing the world in this way. There's things that. So we're going to learn some halakha. Um, let's see how far we get into it. Hold on, let's get the screen up. Hold on. Alrighty. Yes. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, so we're in Shulchan Aruch as always. The Book of Laws, the Holy Table. Okay, okay. So it says Ve'amru Revotenu Zikaronam Libracha. Ezohia Parsham Katana. Okay, so it says like this. Our rabbis of blessed memory said, upon which verse all the principles of the Torah predicate. It's a big question, right? He says, in all the ways, wait, let me see what they got. Right, so he's going to bring a Tanakh, he's going to bring Proverbs. So he's going to bring a Proverbs that says, Beko devarayeka be'edhu. So they're asking questions. So the sages ask the question, what is the verse that everything stands on, everything that matters, right? And the thing is, now that we have this other language, we always have to realize that what we're talking about is anytime they talk about all the Torah, they're talking about the 613 parts, right? And they're saying, so where could I make a connection to all 613 parts, the 248 limbs, and in the other 365 parts? So anytime all of Torah is a code for this. So or they say Shabbat is equivalent to keeping all the Torah, right? All the mitzvahs, right? So it's that same type of understanding. Okay. She says, okay, so that's the point. He says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path smooth. Okay. He said it means that even in these things that you do for your own personal needs, you should acknowledge God and do those things for the sake of his name. Blessed is he. For example, eating, drinking, walking, lying down, getting up, intimacy, and talking and talking all of these different physical needs that are be done for the sake of the Creator, for the sake of doing something that will be concluded to the service of Him. So let's be clear. Just go back to our prior teaching so we could kind of bring up everything together always, because everything is one, even our teachings. So it's like this. So the soul comes down into the world, it comes into the body, it comes down in the face of sharing, it goes in the body, it's now in this face of desire to receive. And so the reality that God creates compels the soul that has the desire to receive now or influenced by that and gives it this momentum to go into this place of sharing, right? Which is going out of that selfish state and thus completing the purpose of this soul's experience, right? Now we accept that, we understand that. Now there's also connected to the teaching that God created all these creatures, right, for the sake of receiving, right? The sake of receiving, right? So all these creatures exist, and God's core desire was to share its benevolence, right? God had this benevolence and wanted to share, so He created these vessels, right? And these vessels that were created were imbued with this desire to receive, right? Different levels, right? This desire to receive, all these vessels, right? And so when you mix these two ideas together, what is the point, right? Because the vessels are going to receive God's light, all of them. All of the vessels are going to receive God's light. So what is the significance? They're going to get it anyways, or they wouldn't be able to live. So the purpose of mankind, as we remember, if we learned, and why mankind is at the top of the podium, because mankind has the ability to receive endlessly from the Creator and acknowledge the source. That's it. That is the purpose of creation. It's literally that simple, right? We are in this world, all the halakha, all the pure thoughts, everything is there to every function of our existence is to be acknowledged as something that comes from the infinite source, the Ein Sof, the endless reality, right? And so that has to be at the core of our understanding. This is what the halakha is. Let's not make it religious. It's spiritual technology. It just allows me to acknowledge the creator. And that's the purpose of creation. Every time I say a bracha and I acknowledge the source of this, what I'm receiving, right? And this pleasure that I'm receiving, and even the difficulties as we learn that we're receiving. Even this understanding, it allows us to complete the purpose of creation, right? Ah, Kalila Ushatia Be Kasad Ain Sirik Lomar. So he says, how can you serve God by eating and drinking? Needless to say, that you may not eat or drink something that are forbidden, God forbid. But even regarding foods that are permitted, if you are thirsty and hungry and you eat and drink just to satisfy your desire, that is not praiseworthy attitude. But you shall have in mind that you are eating and drinking, right? He's not saying, because this is the only way that you become the human being. You fulfill the purpose of creation when you do these things. He's not saying that, but you know it. And so he says, and therefore you should not eat all those appetites in your plate like a dog or a donkey. And you should not eat only things that are helpful and beneficial to the health of your body. You should only eat things that are helpful and beneficial to your body. And there are some very devout people who say, before partaking in food, I am about to eat and drink in order to be healthy and strong and to serve the Creator. Blessed be He. Hayashiva vehakinma ve hahalika. Halika Kasat. So he said, you can serve God by sitting, getting up, and walking. He said, how can you serve God by sitting, getting up, and walking? Needless to say, you should not sit in the company of scoffers, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor walk in the counsel of the wicked. But even if you sit in a meeting of honest men and stand in the place of the righteous and walk in the counsel of perfect, but you do this to satisfy your own desires, to gratify your ambitions and craves, that is not a praiseworthy attitude. You should do these things for the sake of heaven. Nevertheless, you are unable to direct your thoughts to act exclusively for the sake of heaven. You should not obtain from doing things for doing. He says, nevertheless, if you are unable to direct your thoughts, we're just reading about this. If you're able to direct your thoughts, this is that whole concept of Makshava, right? The Ma, right? The name of God. So this is what he's saying on it, right? So all these things, you see, they're just connected. Everyone's saying the same thing in different ways, but different perspectives that they bring that allow you to understand the totality. So he says, you should do things for the sake of heaven. Nevertheless, if you're unable to direct your thoughts to act exclusively for the sake of heaven, you should not abstain from doing these things, or by doing good for ulterior motives. You will eventually do them for the sake of heaven. Sheikha. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. Somebody just called me. All right, hold on. Okay. So it says, how can you serve God by laying down? Needless to say, at the time when you're able to occupy yourself with Torah study and mitzvot, and you yield an urge to sleep, you're on gratification. That is that this is not the proper thing to do. However, when you are tired and you must sleep in order to rest from hard work, if you do so just for the pleasure, it is not praiseworthy. But if you should have in mind that you're sleeping to your eyes and rest your body in order to be healthy, so you will not be distracted by sleeplessness when studying Torah. So even everything, the key thing is everything you're doing, how is it serving God? Sometimes a person may need to go and do whatever, right? This whole thing, right? So he's going to get a little bit weird. Okay, hold on. Tish mi ishta kasa in sirik lemot. Okay, so he says, how can intercourse be a service to God? Jeez. So he says, needless to say, what he says that if you should not commit, he says, needless to say, that you should not commit a sin, God forbid, rather even exercise the conjugal rights that are spoken about in the Torah. If you do so for your own sake and gratification or satisfy your lust, it would be irreprehensible. Whatever, I can't say it today. So he says, even if you have in mind during the process to have sons assist you to take your place, it is not praiseworthy. Rather, you should have in mind to have children that will serve the Creator, or have in mind the strengthening of your body, and to fulfill the conjugal mitzvahs as a man had to fulfill an obligation. Ha shicha chasad ein sarigom lomed le saper leshon. She says, and how can you serve God by talking? Needless to say, that you should not engage in lashon hara or tale-bearing or scoffing or in taking or talking obscenities. God forbid. Even when telling an anecdote from your life, or this our sages would say, have the intentions to serve the Creator or to inspire others to serve Him. Shekahu osek be masha umatan. He says, similarly, when you are engaged in business or in trade or in profession to earn a livelihood, you should not aspire merely to accumulate wealth, but to pursue your work in order to support your family, to give charity, and to raise children to study Torah. The general principle is that you should guide all of your actions is in the duty of every person is to consider in his ways judiciously and to weigh his deeds on the scale of reason. And if he sees something that is conclusive to the service of the Creator on high, he should do it likewise, or he should not do it. If you lead your life accordingly, this rule, you will be serving God in all your days. And even when sitting and getting up and walking, doing business, even when you're eating, you're drinking, yes, even having material relationships and performing all of your bodily functions. With regards to this, the way of our thinking of our rabbis of blessed memory said, let all the deeds of yours for the sake of the heavens. And in this manner, Rabbeinu Hakadosh raises his finger, and he raises his finger a heavenly words when he was dying, and said, "It is obvious and known to you that I derive no personal benefit from them. All I have done is for the sake of heaven." Thoughts, reflections.
Yeah, just once again, just really looking at, that you're conscious, and you're just that man's whole purpose is to infinitely receive from the Creator, the Insof, and to share with creation. Like, we're not here to take, we're here to give, in creation. And the biggest part of that giving is we're the only ones in creation that's going to acknowledge the Creator,
Yep.
and be able to express that acknowledgement and allow all of creation to receive from us the acknowledgement of the Creator. And so when we fail to do that, creation is like it's always waiting. It's always thirsty. It's always not receiving, but yet it's always trying to receive from us. It's always trying to receive from us. And so therefore, if parts of creation, if the Most High created creation to with the whole mindset to receive, and when He put us here, we have our role in this system is to share. And so it's very powerful because this is like us being in His image, whereas we are doing what He does because He infinitely shares. He's always giving. And so this is this reshapes the whole purpose of why we even here. So now we can take that thought life and say, hey, look, hey, you know what? Everything that I'm doing, when I acknowledge Him, saying a blessing over my food, over what I drink, saying a blessing over areas that there was miracles that was done. There was, just everything, a birth, a bris, whatever it is, in all of our ways. And I love that because, we've read that verse many times, but you really don't grasp it. That when He says, in all of your ways, acknowledge Him. A lot of times we just think that's about, hey, before I make a decision in business, before I make a decision about what I want to do with my life, whatever, then I'm going to acknowledge Him first. Think about, okay, what would He have me to do? But what that means is in everything. Everything. I mean, when I pick up a cup and about to take a drink, before I do that, I'm acknowledging Him. Mm-hmm. Because this liquid that's in this cup, it has His presence in it. He's there. And so it's alive. And so I'm acknowledging, hey, I'm about to partake in creation. And so I'm acknowledging Hashem.
I was just thinking about just the restraint. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to make the point in having in mind that you're fulfilling the purpose of creation, right?
Yeah.
And also that the Shekhinah, right? It comes out of exile, right? The Shekhinah, all these things come in the purpose of creation. Everything manifests more and more when we acknowledge that we're fulfilling the purpose of creation by acknowledging the Creator has given to us. Go ahead. Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking about even like with acknowledging and also having those just those barriers where you're not being just like selfish or taking, but receiving. Like when I think about a husband and a wife who are desiring to live a set apart life unto Hashem, you feel as if like, okay, this is our relationship. We can just, handle each other in this way or that way and so forth. But when you realize that, okay, you have little ones, you have children, you have all this going on. And even if you don't have children, you still have to be mindful that this relationship is there so that you can, give to the other person, but not not diminish what Hashem's ultimate goal is for that relationship in the process. Like when it spoke about the lustfulness or just operating in a way that is not pleasing to the Most High, especially like when I bring about the children. So like, husband and wife, they're in a room and they're alone, but then children walk in and, just different things. But you want to be mindful that what are you giving to the little ones? Even if you go out in public, right? You go out in public, husband and wife, what are you giving to society if you behave in a certain way? So it's like we have to just like balance the giving, the receiving, and knowing where that is appropriate and where it's not appropriate. And so just learning all those things. I hope that was clear.
Yeah. Well, also, I love that you said that about, going out and, whether we are doing what is holy or whether we're doing what is not holy, regardless, because of our purpose and because of how Hashem has created us, we are always going to be sharing, regardless. So
Always receiving. We're always going to be
so
receiving.
that's right.
That's right.
And so the idea is that you could be sharing something corruptible with the world. And so the world, so all of creation now becomes defiled because it's going to be always receiving. And so if you're, it's just like if we, that's why we can't eat everything. We got to eat kosher. We got, and there's a higher level of kosher eating, because the way you treat these animals, the way that if you're not acknowledging Hashem and acknowledging the purpose of this animal, and this animal is receiving from you that treatment. And so if you're treating it horribly, and then you're going to sit up there and say, well, it's kosher, but man, you mistreated it. You treated it harshly. It received harshness from you. So what is it going to give back? It's going to give back harshness. But if we treat it respectfully, with kindness, and we take care of it, and we treat it the way that the Creator designed it to be treated, then guess what? It becomes holy. It becomes set apart. And so that's wow.
Yeah, no, this is powerful. One of the things you actually said really brought out was the idea that we're sharing, we're giving off energy all the time, right? Because we're receiving. So he says, but what are we actually giving off? Are we giving off darkness to the world, or are we giving off light? The only way we know if we're giving off light and darkness is by acknowledging the Creator, right? And maybe even if I was coming from a place and I didn't have maybe the best intentions, by still acknowledging the fact that it comes from the Creator, I convert it to a degree. You know what I'm saying? So, so that idea is there. Okay, so we're going to go back on Wednesday. We're going to start with Rav Ashlag. We're going to go back into that. So it's good to review. It's good to review because it's a very complicated, very sophisticated. But you see how important it is to have this broad understanding as you dive into the text, because you're able to now make connections and see points and see connections. Like now you have the desire to receive, the desire to share. That's always purity and purity. That's always light and vessel. Vessel is always receiving, light is always sharing. So anytime you see that the Torah is describing these two qualities. Anyway, so we'll continue on Wednesday. Baruch atah. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. Did you want to discuss the question that you sent?
Oh,
you want to wait on that?
Yeah. We got to work through it through the week.
Yeah. Okay.
We got to work through it through the week. All right. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Go to